So Forza Horizon 6 was just announced recently. Really opportunistic timing, so I'm hopping on that trending train to talk about Forza Motorsport 2023. Yeah, I have been researching this for quite a while, so you can imagine my frustration when just like a few days before I finished writing this, a completely different Forza game came out, but we are going to talk about it, damn it. Research takes a while, and for those of you who have been stuck under a rock since 1919 and haven't heard of something called The News, Turn 10, the team who have been making the Forza Motorsport franchise since 2005, have been gutted. 70 of their roughly 100 or so employees have been fired by Microsoft, and the reason why is Forza Motorsport 2023. The average player count on Steam, there are no definitive numbers for Xbox, is less than 700 concurrent viewers. Horizon 5, meanwhile, which has been out longer than Motorsport 2023, has over 5,000. It's honestly a shame, given the massive success of what was once an Xbox console launch title series. Given its seemingly inevitable demise, I was planning to celebrate the franchise by gathering up all of the vehicles that have been in every single Forza title since 2005. That's a very short list. There's only, I think, 17 in total that have been in every Forza game, Horizon and Motorsport since 1. And I'll gather them all up and have a throwback competition. I bought the cars, I established the rules, and I didn't really finish the follow-through because I just felt sad. I just didn't have the energy or the motivation to get a satisfying video out, so instead, I'm here to answer a question. Why? And I don't mean on the surface level. It's been no secret the struggles that the game has had. I mean, I wanted to go a little deeper, things you might not necessarily be aware of if you're just a casual guy who gets it on Game Pass. And I wanted to maybe draw some parallels and some explanations as to what led to what looks like the end of one of the biggest racing franchises in the world. But first, I want to go through the things that I actually like about Motorsport 2023 in its current state. I really like the variable weather effect. I feel like it's a significant improvement from the weather on Forza 7 and makes the new addition of rain tires incredibly valuable. Speaking of, the introduction of different racing tire compounds brings some legitimate tire and fuel strategy to racing that we have not seen before in Forza, especially when the weather changes. Those dry weather slicks are useless in the rain. And I've also been having a lot of fun with the new solo career mode that they've introduced a while back. It sort of reminds me of an early Project Cars. You start out in Ginetta Juniors, the one-make racing series up to 4-8 Challenge, then you go to GT3s and V8 Supercars and touring cars and all the way up to the vintage Formula 1 cars. It's nice. It gives you an actual sense of progression, even though it's completely optional which path you want to start on. That also brings me to the variety of the race cars available. There are some real gems in here. There's some from the base of the game, like the Levorg BTC C-Wagon. Love to see it. But then you go all the way up to the classic Trans Am Mustang Boss 302. We also have the entire new Trans Am field, and most of the IMSA GTP and GT3 field, although they do have some varying questionable years. Some are from 2014, some are from 2022, some are from 2025. It's a bit of a hodgepodge, but it's there. And most of these were free. There haven't been very many car packs for Motorsport 23. Now, granted, most of them were FOMO free, but you had all month to complete the series, so it's better than Horizon's festival playlist, in my opinion. But most of all, I like the fact that they didn't balloon the car list with duplicates. In previous Forza games, they would have mechanically identical cars with different racing liveries and call them different cars. I think that's a bit insulting. In this game, though, there's only one Ferrari 333 SP, there's only one Zaxbyed Capri, and the only real exception to this is the BMW V12 LMRs, and at least in that case, one of them is the Le Mans winner, and the other one is the art car. And what about the engine swaps? Well, they're suitably mad and impossible, which is always fun. It's one of the best aspects of Forza. Adding a turbocharger to the iconic quad-rotor racing engine? Brilliant! Stuffing a Lamborghini V10 into a 1981 Ford Fiesta? Absurd! I'm pretty sure the V10 is 50% of the length of the Fiesta, not including the gearbox. So I'm not quite sure that would fit in the engine bay, but that is the type of sandbox freedom that I adore about the Forza franchise. But now it's time to bring up the cons. And I will try, I'll try to be brief, since everyone has not shut up about them since this game has come out. First of all, the variety of road cars. While the race car list is incredible in my opinion, the road car list leaves a lot to be desired. There are some really interesting ones like the Lamborghini Jarma and the Mitsubishi FTO, but then they're missing cars from prior games, like the Alfa Quadrifoglio and the Ford Fairlane Thunderbolt. And I know there is licensing issues, and that's usually the reason why, but it just feels weird to have it in Horizon 5 and not in Motorsport, or in Motorsport 7 but not 2023. Very strange. A lot of people thought they would be filled in, these gaps would be filled in with the seasonal rewards or DLCs, but they weren't. It's bizarre. For me personally, I'm sad that we don't have any silly vehicles. Motorsport made a point in response to fan criticism that there would be no trucks, no SUVs, no Ford Woody, none of that ridiculous stuff that doesn't belong on a racetrack. And people will say that. They will say it doesn't belong in Motorsport, but I disagree. Weird vehicles frequently end up making some fantastic racing challenges. It's taking something you shouldn't be able to do and then doing it. It's great. And then we have the upgrade system itself, the much maligned upgrade system. Let's be honest, the points system that locked the upgrades was so bad the developers changed it after just a few months. But being able to buy the points to then buy upgrades only partially solved the problem, because the car pricing is so skewed from the original plan that an X-Class McLaren Formula 1 car is less than $500,000. It's totally nonsensical. If they were going to change the upgrade system, they should have changed the entire currency structure. But moving away from all of that, we have the tracks. There's not many, and a lot of them are fictional. And then there's the omissions. Yes, it's great to have Kyalami in Mid-Ohio, but there's no Long Beach, no Le Mans Bugatti circuit, no test track of any kind. Both the airfield and the Top Gear test track are missing. Not only were those iconic tracks, but going back to the chaos elements, they were classic chaos races, with jumps and crossover points. It was interesting. And of course, all of this means that drag racing is also missing, even though Motorsport 7 introduced the experimental drag race mode. Why they would introduce a bright yellow with black highlights experimental mode and then not include the full release air quotes in the next game is bizarre. It's like having a Chekhov's gun and then not firing it in a movie. Speaking of bizarre, the penalty system is a complete joke. I know it came from a good place, trying to stop the Forza lobby rammers, but having a computer try to dissect the nuances of wheel-to-wheel racing was never going to work, and it still doesn't. But the biggest problem, by far, the one that truly killed any hope of this game of being a success, was the lies and false expectations that were set up by the studio. When the first teaser dropped in 2022, everyone was in awe of the photorealistic graphics, ray tracing, drag racing, drifting, and brand new audio, car, and track models that were built from the ground up. After all, it had been in development for over 3 years and had a 6-month delay before release, so it must have been good. It wasn't. Microsoft has a practice of hiring a lot of different developers on contract for a few months of horrible workdays, and then cycling through the next group of soon-to-be burned-out cogs in their machine. This cycling of contract employees hurt the overall vision and efficiency of the game because of a lack of internal stability at turn 10. Low pay, contract programming resulted in systemic, bug problems, glitches, and crashes that made the game almost unplayable for months after launch. And what's worse, I gotta say, Turn 10 was a bit lazy. Several of their car models were still the same ones from 2007. The audio is the same story. And the tracks, well, between Spa being spelled wrong and Daytona's pit lane exit being so bad that it was mocked by IMSA commentators during a race weekend, that kind of says it all. I know they had budget cuts, we'll get to that, but come on guys, you gotta be able to prioritize it after this long of a development cycle. And the only thing I'll say about the graphics is that if you look at some of the car parts, at some angles, in some lighting conditions, they may look like the teaser. But otherwise, you'll be looking at all the colors of the rainbow through various muted gray filters. It honestly reminds me of your average Marvel movie. Yeah, it's not great. Honestly, I prefer Forza 7 to it, which is kind of sad. I will say though, if Turn 10 released the game in its current state, instead of how it was launched, we would probably not be having this conversation. But they did. So we are. And what's most disappointing about this whole thing is that Turn 10 have had experience with ground-up redesigns before, when they launched Forza Motorsport 5 in 2013. Forza Motorsport 4 was a game changer and still the best motorsport game ever made, but it also used the old Xbox 360 development model from 2005, whereas Forza 5 would be developed brand new for the next-gen Xbox One. And to highlight its increased processing capabilities in the new console, Forza introduced laser scanning for the first time, finally matching Gran Turismo's track modeling process. They also increased the number of polygons used, and hired 15-time Academy Award-winning studio Skywalker Sound to help with the sound development. As a result, Forza 5 genuinely looked like it was a new era of video gaming, and a noticeable improvement in quality over Forza 4. They also added genuinely new content, like open-wheeled racing and Yas Marina, to emphasize a switch from fictional to real-world tracks. For the most part, the technical aspects of Forza Motorsport 5 were truly built from the ground up. But it also gutted what made Forza 4 so fun. For instance, the brilliant game modes like car football and the basic economy cars were gone, destined to never return. That, to me, was the biggest crime of Forza 5. It became too serious for a game that allows 1,000 horsepower V12 engine swaps. Economy car racing with cars you can actually buy is infinitely better and more fun than racing the Ferrari F8 against the Ferrari 488. I know, again, licensing contracts, they want to have the best and the biggest for all the promo and whatnot, but it's always fun to beat a Pagani with a Toyota Prius. Even when Forza adds these basic cars now, they have to be the performance variants. It's a Camry TRD or a Golf GTI instead of a Golf TDI, because manufacturers don't want to promote their boring stuff when they can promote their fun stuff. I won't say that Motorsport 5 was a great game or even a particularly good game, but I will say that the developers clearly put the effort into making a game that could be considered as the next leap forward. I don't see that same effort in Motorsport 2023. Thank you, Microsoft. So what's next? Well, in completely unrelated news, Microsoft partnered with Sony to release Forza Horizon 5 on the PS5 in April this year. Combine that with Turn 10's consolidation into Playground Games, my bet is that the once rival studios are going to form a partnership. Microsoft will keep developing the Horizon series, and Sony will keep developing the Gran Turismo series, and they will make them both available across both platforms. On one hand, it allows the studios to focus on what they excel at. On the other hand, Gran Turismo and Forza Motorsport were great rivals, which at their best forced the development of new innovations and new features to beat the competition, thus making the player experience infinitely better. Whether or not this sharing cross-platform merger is going to happen or not is unknown. There isn't even any rumors of it being dreamed up at the time of writing this piece. But either way, it's a sad day for the racing game industry as a whole. There aren't really many circuit racing games that offer the same freedom that motorsport does. You can race any car on any track in any class with any modification that you want, even if you have an Enzo V12 stuffed under the hood. I genuinely hoped that the return of Fujimi Kaido and the Mazda Furai and IndyCar would signify a turnaround with Microsoft where they actually bothered to invest the resources that were necessary in the first place. Instead, it just seemed to be a final placating gift to the players of a dying game from a franchise that went out with a whimper and not a bang. There's no single entity to blame for this fiasco. The developers made genuinely stupid decisions on their own accord. Microsoft did not force them to make the car points system, and they did not force them to get rid of some of the fictional tracks like Prague. The marketing team is also to blame because they spread false promises of a game that was not ready for launch. And Microsoft, well, they were taking away talent and resources whenever they could to cut costs. It was a perfect storm of disaster that never got a happy ending. So, there's no other way to put this. Goodbye.